In this movie, I want to show you how we can combine layer effects to transform this composition here on the left, made from shape layers, to this finished result on the right. So moving now to the start file, I'm going to come to the window menu and choose Arrange and Consolidate all to tabs. Then I'm going to press my F key to change my view mode and my spacebar and drag that image over to the left so that we have room on the right to see our layer style dialog box. This composition is made up essentially of three different layer groups. There's the pole, which is the sign itself, there's the type, and there's the neon. And each of these is going to have different layer effects. And one of the points I want to make here is that in addition to applying layer effects to individual members of the group, we can also, or alternatively, apply layer effects to the layer group itself. So in the case of the pole layer group, I'm going to begin by applying a layer effect to the black part. So let's double click on that. And I have several predefined styles which are already loaded, and I'll just point out the noteworthy things about these styles. So I'll come to styles, and if you haven't already loaded these, then you can do so by coming and choosing Load Styles. They are in the exercise files folder. They're called styles.asl. I'm viewing my styles as a small list. I'll now scroll down until I get to Motel Sign Black. This particular layer style is made up of a gradient overlay, which is not doing anything dramatic, but it's just darkening the bottom corner of the sign, and an inner shadow. Now the inner shadow is interesting because if I zoom in on it, we can see that there is some texture to it, and that's a result of the noise. Something else noteworthy here is that I am not using global light, and that's because I want my lighting directions to be different. So blend mode of multiply, opacity of 55, but noteworthy is the noise. Now I'm going to come to the red part of the sign, double click to the right of its layer name, come to my styles, and Motel Sign Red. Here we have a drop shadow, not doing a great deal, but if we look on the right side of the sign, we can see the drop shadow. If I turn that off and turn it back on again, there's the drop shadow. I'll just zoom out on the sign and the gradient overlay. Just as before, it's darkening the sign from the bottom. The inner shadow is doing just that. It's applying an inner shadow to the shape. And if we turn that off and then back on again, we can see the result that that's having. And there's a small amount of noise, 8% noise, that's part of that inner shadow, giving it some texture. Now, in addition to that, I also want a layer effect applied to the whole group. In this case, it's just a gradient overlay, and I just want the same gradient overlay applied to the group as is currently applied to the red part of the sign. So I'm going to hold down Option or Alt and drag that onto the layer group. I'll now close that layer group and come to the Motel layer. Double click to the right of that, come to the styles, scroll down in my list of styles and come to Motel Text. So here we have two drop shadows, the first of which is just giving a sort of ambient shadow around the whole letter form, and then the second of which is more offset to the right, and then we have an inner shadow, and the inner shadow I think here is the most interesting because the inner shadow has quite a lot of noise added to it, and that's giving this grainy effect. And then we have the neon group. Now in the neon group are 5 separate layers, one for each piece of neon. In this case, I'm going to apply the layer effect to the layer group. So I'll double click to the right of the group, come to my styles, and this is Motel Neon. And the main event here is the outer glow. But first of all, let's just take a look at what the drop shadow and the inner glow are doing. So the drop shadow is just giving some definition to those neon shapes. The inner glow is changing the color from a stark white to a light yellow, and then the outer glow is introducing quite a lot of noise, an ongoing theme here, and its blend mode is set to linear burn. So in combination, all of those layer effects create a far more interesting composition than the one that we started with.